You've just opened your eyes to 0.5 million years ago. Your tribe is starving, and today, they'll find something they were never meant to touch. If you want to feel what life was really like back then, subscribe. This is their story, and now it's yours too. You remember the first day the forest changed, the trees stood still, the wind didn't blow, and the birds refused to sing. The morning air felt thick, not heavy, just loaded like the forest was holding its breath. You were out with the others, walking slowly, watching the ground. The hunt had failed again. No deer, no birds, not even a squirrel. 3 days now, bellies growled louder than footsteps, and then one of them saw it just beyond the mossy stones. Under a tree with red bark that none of you had ever seen before, there it was. A patch of plants you didn't recognize, white leaves, soft purple fruit hanging low, glistening like they were sweating. Borri was the first to reach it. He sniffed the air, then plucked one, held it in his hand, turned it over slowly. Something about it looked wrong. But everything looked wrong after days without meat. He took a bite. At first nothing happened. He just nodded slowly, chewed with tired eyes, and said, "Sweet." Then the others rushed in, laughing like children for a moment, grabbing the fruits, biting through the soft flesh, letting juice spill down their arms and mouths. It tasted good, strange but good, almost like cooked berries, warm even though they came from the cold ground. You didn't eat it? Something in your chest told you not to, something deep, older than your voice, older than your thoughts. Maybe it was the way the bark peeled off the red tree, or how there were no bugs on the leaves, no ants, no flies, not even birds circling above. You stepped back and watched. They filled their hands, their pouches, their mouths. They walked back to camp laughing, telling stories like they hadn't in days. You carried your silence home beside them. That night, the wind came back, but it was warm, not cold like it should have been. The fire felt wrong, like it didn't belong. The sparks flew sideways instead of up. And when the howls came from deep in the woods, they didn't sound like wolves. You tried to sleep but couldn't. Their laughter still echoed too loud in your ears. Even though the fire had died and everyone else was quiet, you turned over and saw Borri sitting up, eyes open, not blinking. You whispered his name, but he didn't answer. He just sat there, breathing, slow, not looking at anything, not looking at you, just sitting, awake, still. Face turned toward the dark edge of the camp. You fell asleep at some point, then woke with a jolt when the scream came. It was Ilka, the oldest woman in the tribe. She had been the one to crush roots, to know the safe ones from the bitter ones. Her scream wasn't sharp. It was long and low, like something deep was pulling it from her. Everyone ran to her shelter, but she wasn't inside. Only claw marks on the ground and the soft fruit, placed in a neat pile where her fire used to burn. No one said a word. Everyone turned to Borri, but Borri was gone, just gone. The forest stayed quiet all morning. No birds, no bugs, not even the usual groans of old trees. Just silence, thick and watching. By evening, they were hungry again. They argued for hours, but hunger is louder than fear. One by one, they went back to the red tree, and one by one, they came back with more fruit. You watched from behind the ferns, heart pounding. They sat in a circle this time, like it was a ceremony, like it was sacred. They laughed again, too loud, teeth stained purple, eyes shining in the firelight. You walked away, far from the circle, far from the smell, far from the giggling that didn't sound like your people anymore. You sat alone under a cold tree, curled into yourself, trying not to cry. That night, it rained ash. Not snow, not dust, ash falling soft like feathers, coating the leaves in grey. When the wind blew, it smelled like wet stones and burnt hair. You didn't sleep, not even for a moment. In the morning, you returned. Only the fire pit was left. The others were gone, not dead, not missing, just gone, as if the ground had swallowed them in silence. but there were tracks, not human tracks. Not animal either. They were shaped like feet, but longer, wider, with thin lines dragging behind like claws or roots. Dozens of them, circling the camp, pressed deep into the ash-covered soil. And in the center of the camp, where the fire had been, the fruits were growing again, bigger now, glossier and warm to the touch. You stepped back and the wind blew hard, carrying laughter through the trees. But it wasn't your tribe's laughter anymore. It was layered, like dozens of mouths trying to sound human. You didn't look back, not once, not even when the trees started whispering your name. You walked for 2 days without resting. The trees stayed quiet behind you, but you always felt watched. Every twig snap made your chest tighten. Every bird that stayed silent made you doubt they even existed anymore. Your feet hurt, your legs shook, your mouth was dry, but you didn't turn around, you followed the river, hoping it would take you somewhere safer, somewhere quieter, somewhere untouched by the fruit, untouched by what your tribe had become on the 3rd night. You stopped under a fallen tree and lit a small fire. You didn't eat. You couldn't. Your stomach was twisting in strange ways and your thoughts didn't sit still. That's when you saw him, Bari, just standing across the river, not moving, not blinking. His skin looked grey in the moonlight. His eyes were too wide, too round, and they shone like wet stones, not like human eyes, not anymore. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, and behind him the trees moved in strange waves, not with wind but with rhythm, like they were breathing, like they were listening. You dropped the fire and ran. The shadows followed, but they didn't chase you with speed. They followed with calm steps, like they knew you'd stop eventually, like they had time, like hunger always wins in the end. You found shelter in a dry cave, small and tight. You curled up and slept with your back to the wall, holding a sharp stone in your hand, just in case something reached in through the dark. But nothing did, not that night, not the next. Days passed, or maybe just one long day with no end. You couldn't tell anymore. You heard things in the distance, not close, just circling. You saw figures sometimes through the trees, bent backward, walking wrong, arms too long, legs too still, heads tilted as if listening to things inside the dirt. And the fruit kept growing. Even here, small ones first, curling up from cracks in the stone, then bigger, purple, warm to the touch. Their roots crept toward your feet when you slept. You tried to burn them. They didn't burn. They hissed and screamed when the flames touched them. And you swear you heard laughter under the crackle, high-pitched and distant, like children in a cave. You left the cave on the 5th morning. You were thin, weak and cold, but alive or something. Close to it, you followed your own footprints backward, not because you wanted to return, but because they were the only path you knew. Every step felt heavier, like the earth was pulling your feet in, like it didn't want you to leave again. You came upon the old camp just before dusk. It was different now. The fire was gone, the shelters gone, even the stones had been moved. What remained was a white pit, dug deep, perfectly round, like a mouth opened in the soil, and in the center, rising from the middle, was the red tree, the same bark, the same fruit. But now the branches moved on their own, like arms swaying in music only they could hear. You stood at the edge of the pit and saw them, your tribe, or what was left of them. They were part of the roots now, faces stretched across bark, eyes half open, mouths still chewing, flesh melted into wood, and the fruit grew from their hands, their ribs, their tongues. You fell to your knees. You couldn't cry, you couldn't scream. All you could do was listen to the tree breathe, slow and steady, like it had waited so long for someone to understand. You stepped back, trembling, but your legs didn't obey. And then you heard Ilka's voice behind you, soft, cracked, still ancient. It needs to feed again, she said. You turned around and saw her. Her face was half gone, part bark, part bone. Her hands no longer touched the ground, her feet hovered, and her eyes looked through you, not at you. She smiled, slow and wide, and pointed to your chest. It likes hunger, she whispered, and you're full of it. You ran again. But the forest didn't let you go this time. The trees closed in, the sky disappeared, the ground turned soft and pulsing. Like skin under your feet, every root you stepped on moved, every leaf whispered your name now. You stumbled, fell, scraped your arms, and when you looked up, the fruit was beside you, small, purple, warm, still breathing, still offering. You picked it up without meaning to, you held it close, you felt its heat in your palm. Its skin opened like lips, and the smell made your stomach growl, louder than fear, louder than memory, louder than anything else. You bit into it, not deep, just enough, and the world shifted, colors bent, light cracked like glass. The air became thick honey, and the whispers in the forest turned into voices you knew. Voices of the ones you loved, the ones you lost, and they were calling you home. You dropped the fruit, but it was too late. Your fingers were already stained, your veins already warm, your thoughts already soft. You stood up slowly and you walked back to the tree, back to the roots, back to the hunger, and as you stood beside them, the others, smiling, silent, waiting. You felt the bark crawl gently over your feet, up your ankles, across your skin, and for the first time in days, you weren't hungry anymore, you were home, and the tree began to grow again.